I didn't know. Yeah, it wasn't before.
Brad is there? I'm gonna go talk to Brad.
Oh my gosh.
Brad.
What's up, Bradley?
How you doing?
I'm great.
Good to see you. Good to see you. You got any big plans for Christmas? We're just trying to keep everybody together, keep everybody healthy, get them together.
I got my Steve. There were burgers here. I turned up the mic here. But if I can't, I'm gonna do this.
Who owns
Oh.
Well, we didn't get to see my son because my oldest, he's the one
Because I was the last.
assistant police chief over in Mission Keys. And we didn't get to see him or his wife, the grandkid. Everybody was gone down there. They had some people taking down a big cedar lot. So they were down there, so we didn't get to see them at all.
You ready?
Bad day.
All right, it is 7 o'clock. I'd like to welcome everybody to the December 15th DeSoto City Council meeting. Start with roll call, please.
Lane,
Yes.
Murdoch,
Here.
Daniels,
Here.
Carmichael,
Present.
Ritter,
Okay.
all are present.
All right, very good. I would invite you all to please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, our first item tonight is a budget hearing for our budget amendment. Mike, is that anything you want to introduce here?
I certainly can. Yes, Kansas statute allows us to amend our current year budget by holding a public hearing and having a vote of the council. This year, as a result of numerous unbudgeted initiatives that we undertook throughout the year, we are in need of budget amendments for the general fund, for the water fund, sewer fund, and refuse funds. I did prepare a staff report that outlines, specifically outlines what those initiatives were for the general fund. We had several things that were related to capital improvement projects that are actually to be funded next year within a bond issue that we recently undertook, and some other consulting services as a result of the work that's connected to the Panasonic project. In the water fund, largely it was increases in bulk commodity charges and a result of the pay increases and retention bonuses that we did in the summer. Same thing in the sewer fund. The refuse fund, there was $65,000 in fuel surcharges this year because of the cost of fuel over the summer. One additional note in the water fund, we will forego a transfer from the water fund to the general fund of about $125,000 that was planned for this year. We're going to forego that in order to keep the water fund in a positive fund balance state moving forward. So that's the introduction. We'll hold a public hearing. The state certificate was published. This is it. I've got it displayed here. General water, sewer, and refuse funds there. We need to hold that public hearing, and then we'll act on it later in the agenda.
Okay. With that introduction, I will now officially open the public hearing. Anyone wish to address the council or speak to this item on the public hearing? Not yet. Seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing, and then we'll take this up under item 4G of the regular agenda. Our next item is our consent agenda. Tonight on the consent agenda, we have approval of the minutes from our council meeting of December 1st, approval of pay ordinance number 940, approval of 2023 cereal malt beverage licenses, approve second transfer addendum with SRL related to water tower property, approve resolution 1096, declaring the boundaries of the city of DeSoto. Is there any item anyone would wish to remove from the consent agenda for further discussion? Or a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion, we approve the consent agenda.
A second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Hanamichael.
Yes.
Daniels.
Yes.
Murdoch.
Yes.
Ritter.
Yes.
Lane. Yes. Motion carries.
All right, our next item is called to public. Members of the public are welcome to use this time to comment about any matter relating to city business not listed on tonight's agenda. The comments that are discussed under call to public may or may not be acted on by the council during this meeting. Does anyone wish to address the council under call to public?
Rose Roadwalker in 9160 Cedar Creek Road, DeSoto. And I just wanted to take a few minutes to kind of do a little update and recap for Discovering DeSoto this year. And as you know, DeSoto's growing, and actually our magazine has two. The last two issues, we went from 36 pages to 40 pages. And in 2021, we were actually at 32 pages. We were at that amount of pages for several years. And a year ago, I switched printers, and I'm using Allen Press in Lawrence. And because, you know, there's tons of inflation now, but as I said last year, they kind of specialize in magazines, so they were able to offer well, we're printing page-wise at pretty consistent cost. So even though inflation has gone up quite a bit, we've I've been able to keep the budget for the printing and distribution pretty constant, and just increased like $250 to $500 as pages have also increased for the city. Because I think we usually had 4 pages, but one issue had 5 and one issue had 6. And so that's a pretty modest amount of money, considering with prices going up so much. So the other thing is last issue I redesigned the pages. There's more white space for a cleaner look and more professional magazine. And it continues to remain a well-read, informative publication for the community, residents, and organizations, and communications for the city of DeSoto. And actually, our last issue, Thanksgiving and Growing, I thought really captured DeSoto, because there's a lot of growth going on, but it's a community to be thankful for and a community that gives. And so I just thought it was just a good issue to kind of capture what's going on in DeSoto. And you probably saw that I began with well, giving by some of our organizations, but we had business news, and then we had more business news, and it was kind of fun, and then there was, and even more business news, so there was lots of things happening, along with our traditional organizations and updates in the community. And then I actually had Mizzou, University of Missouri, give me a call, and they were asking for my reference for an intern I had, Ella Fixon, and so she's going to be on staff with the University of Missouri's newspaper, which that school specializes in journalism. And so I was really pleased that I could provide a portfolio for her, and that she's moving ahead in her journalism career. And the last portion is working with Johnson County. In the past, we've had, I feature different items that take place in DeSoto, and they had a temporary sculpture at Lexington Lake several years ago. And then that kind of helped prompt where they included our summer sunset concerts in their Shawnee Mission Theater in the park brochures that went out. And I include the Johnson County Public Library, DeSoto Branch, News, and this last issue, they actually began advertising, and they're gonna continue advertising in 2023. And so I've been really glad to work with the county and kind of help, just build some bridges there and work together. And then the last item, that was in our last issue, was when I did the COVID navigating the 2020 pandemic, that actually had 2 pages. The first one was a beacon of light and hope, and then a pandemic collage. And both those pages are actually going to be, they are part of their, the Johnson County Museum permanent collection. And so I framed some pieces of those pages, and so I went through all their, the paperwork and different processes that they had. So DeSoto will be represented in that museum, which was exciting. And so it was briefly in this last issue, but I wanted to also share that with you guys too. So I just want to conclude by saying thank you for your continued support and coming together to synergize efforts and financial support. So I don't know if anyone has any questions or
Any questions?
comments or
Yeah. Thank you, Rose. We do,
Okay,
do
thank you.
appreciate the publication. Anyone else under call to public? All right, seeing none, we'll move on. Item 3, old business, we do not have any, so we will go to item 4A, consider fee proposal from CFS for construction phase services on the Ottawa Street project. My employer is CFS, so I'm gonna declare a conflict and leave the meeting. Lori, you are in charge.
Oh, great.
Here we go.
So let the record show that the mayor has left the meeting.
So noted.
Thank you. Who's up on this, Mike?
Yeah, that's me. Yes, council, this is in addition to the engineering contract we already have with CFS for the Ottawa Street project. We hired them last fall to design the project, which is now underway. At that time, we anticipated being able to perform the construction phase services here in-house. The review of pay requests, attending progress meetings, submittal reviews, and closeout items. Since then, it's become clear that the scope and scale of work that's the city staff has to do, we're not going to have time to do that effectively. So I've asked them to give us a scope and fee for that work. And that scope and fee is attached to the staff report. The fee for that is $28,258, and we're asking for the council's approval on that, in that amount for the project.
All right, does anyone have any questions for Mike on this issue? All right,
I'll make a motion, we accept the fee proposal from CFS for the construction phase services in the amount of $28,258.02.
I will second that.
all right, we have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Lane,
Yes.
Ritter,
Yes.
Hanamichael,
Yes.
Daniels,
Yes.
Murdoch,
Yes,
motion carries.
thank you.
Thank you, council.
Is that all he needs to be on for?
Yeah, I believe so.
So, yeah.
Item 4B, consider bids for 2023 mowing contracts.
Yes, Mayor and Council. You may remember in July, I presented an analysis for in-house mowing services. In the summer of 2022, there was concern about the cost of the 2022 mowing contract due to record inflation and the initial level of service that our mowing vendor gave us during the beginning of the mowing season. After some discussion with the vendor from the 2022 season, the mowing service has improved significantly, and staff was satisfied with the results. The proposal requested by council called for the city to hire 3 full-time positions to cover mowing services, 1 in the Parks Department and 2 in the Streets Department, to maintain landscaping around City Hall, the Aquatic Center, the city rights-of-way, and various water and sewer properties throughout the city. After the initial analysis in July, council directed staff to seek bids and come back to council with an updated analysis with the new bids for the 2023 mowing season. Also, in the 2023 budget, an additional $80,000 of salary and benefits was placed in the street department's operation budget to allow spending authority and flexibility for the council should they decide to bring mowing in-house. Bringing the total mowing approved budget for 2023 to $158,000 for 2023. In the fall, staff met to review mowing maps and rewrite the mowing bid documents to include rights-of-way, mist, and various documents, and increase the frequency of mowing at various sites to meet council's requests. During the process, the water department was asked to be included in the overall bid. Currently, water staff is mowing wells and the water distribution plant with existing staff. They found that they're spending significant amount of time mowing the wells, and they asked that they could be included in the bid to save staff time. In November, staff sent out bids to 5 local vendors. We received 2 bids from vendors. The low bid was Supreme Green, our current vendor, with a bid of $134,965. Attached in the agenda item is a revised analysis for the in-house mowing, and it outlines the staffing and equipment needs for starting an in-house mowing program. They include 3 full-time equivalents at approximately $170,000 in salary and benefits, and $85,000 in equipment for a total annual cost of $201,000, or $66,000 more than the low bid from Supreme Green. The equipment in the analysis was amortized over 3 years with a 4.5% interest rate with a loan to the electric utility fund. Additionally, you may remember there was a request from the Parks and Rec Department to reorganize staff should council approve bringing mowing staff in-house. The request was to take a park maintenance worker position, and the proposal included an analysis to reclass the position to a building maintenance position. This position would provide an additional journeyman level electrical and plumbing work to complete complicated maintenance tasks in the city. The budget impact of the reorganization is approximately $15,684 more than the $201,000 for the in-house mowing services, bringing the total request to roughly $217,000. This position in the Parks and Recreation Department is necessary and would alleviate some of the workload from our current building maintenance staff, and will be requested should the second floor be remodeled in the coming years. After discussion with staff, there were concerns with managing a new program during a time of rapid growth in the city. Additionally, at a tight labor market with low unemployment, staff is concerned with capacity and overtime requirements to be able to maintain the grounds. As a result, staff found that the best option is to continue to review a similar proposal on an annual basis, and they recommend that we accept the low bid from Supreme Green in an amount not to exceed $134,965. I will stand for any questions from council.
I think after some initial confusion, maybe Supreme Green settled in and ended up doing a pretty good job, right?
Yeah, there was, if you may remember, Supreme Green was a new vendor, and there was quite a bit of confusion over what line to mow to, where to mow. After kind of reviewing some of the maps, we found that there were some areas that we'd missed in previous maps, and so we had kind of discussed that with the vendor. I met with staff from Parks and Recreation, the Streets Department, and Water Department. We spent quite a few Fridays reviewing the maps to come up with a more comprehensive list of what needs to be mowed. And we've actually increased some of the mowing frequency on some of our rights of way in order to keep the grass at a manageable level.
Questions from council?
Just the idea that Supreme Green understands those changes and is going to be able to staff it and keep up with what we want them to do if we're asking them to do extra stuff.
Yeah.
They won't have problems with having people working in, hopefully anyway.
Yeah, so I actually had a call in to I forgot his name off the top of my head,
Yep.
but thank you. Had a phone call in and just kind of discussed it, and we're gonna have a meeting before this kind of kicks off and kind of go over some of the maps so we get a better understanding of what needs to be mowed. I can't promise that the service is going to be better than next year, but our goal is to make sure that they know where things need to be mowed. So we're gonna work on our communication skills with the vendor for the next year.
Any others? Ready for a motion?
I'll make a motion then we approve the contract with Supreme Green LLC for $34,965.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Lane?
Yes.
Ritter?
Yes.
Hanamichael?
Yes.
Daniels?
Yes.
Murdoch?
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right. Item 4C, consider task order for emergency generator design.
All right, Cameron and I worked on this, together. A couple years ago, Steve Chick started on this project, before he retired. And with the concept of having an emergency generator installed, just basically that right back down here, that if we were to lose power, that the entire facility, we would still be able to be up and running and provide services to the community. So we found, kind of went through Steve's file, and Cameron and I didn't feel comfortable, I guess, doing this specs on this project. So what we're basically asking for is to be able to enter into a contract with PEC for the design of the generator sizing, so that we can get what we need. We have talked to them about the possibility of the remodel of the top floor and making sure that that footprint is included in what we need. Don't know if there's anything else that I'm missing here, but if you have any questions, definitely open that.
Any questions for Jay?
Jay, I read through this. When you discuss this with them, will they maybe have a lead time on the size of the generator that might have to?
Yeah, we talked to Lee, well, we've already done a little bit preliminary discussions with them, and Kelby, what did Kelby say when we talked?
So, obviously, electrical components have incredibly long lead times right now. She seemed to think that if we got a generator ordered January, February timeframe, we could expect to see it by the end of next year. We had discussed with her the potential for, phasing this project if the lead times, we were talking with them, when they design it and size it, they're gonna contact the vendor and try to get lead times and give us accurate lead times once we have the construction documents in hand. And if it would save us significant time, we've discussed potentially the city directly ordering the generator and then bidding the work out as opposed to going through the bid process and killing another 4 to 6 weeks until the contractor could order said generator to expedite it depending on the lead times. But she seemed to think if we ordered it in the first month or two of next year, we could see it by the end of next year.
Thank you.
Yeah, and she seemed to indicate that, this generator just kind of estimated the sizing based on what Steve had in his documents, and assuming that it would be something in that range, She didn't think those had terribly long lead times. Some of the larger generators, you know, some of the Merck, for instance, has some that are the size of a semi-trailer. She said as you get to those types, the lead times get exponentially longer.
Some a couple of years, that's why I asked. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Just curious of the consultants that we have on calls with, why the selection of PEC over any of the others?
That, I don't know if one of you two wants
Yeah,
to
no,
attack that one.
It was, they had already done some work here on the structural analysis for the City Hall renovation, so that was largely the reason. They were already familiar with.
Familiar with the building?
Yeah.
Okay.
Any others? Are we ready for a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve a task order with PEC in the amount of $12,000 for the design of construction documents and engineering services for the sizing of the emergency generator to be installed at City Hall.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion of the motion? Roll call, please.
Hanamichael,
Yes.
Daniels,
Yes.
Murdoch,
Yes.
Lane,
Yes.
Ritter,
Yes.
motion carries.
Thank you both.
Thank you. Item 4D, discuss City Hall renovations.
Thank you, Mayor. This is another project Jay and I have been working together pretty extensively on. We started a couple months back, just kind of looking at the space upstairs and meeting with Brandon and Mike and kind of trying to get a feel as to how many employees to plan for upstairs to try to generate a concept of some sort. So we had a direction, knew where we were going to go. With all of the growth that's planned in the city, you know, it's going to be crucial for the engineering, planning, and building departments to work as a team seamlessly. And so the three departments being together in the same area made the most sense from a size perspective, just because there really isn't a good place on this floor for those three departments to all have space and have room for growth. So we started with that as kind of the basis for where to go with this project. And then as well, the City Hall Master Plan has shown the current chamber office being repurposed into parks space as the chamber would have another space to move to. So preliminarily anyways, we've planned for chamber EDC space upstairs just to give us a concept of direction for this project. Jay and I went upstairs and I drew a rough concept drawing. We took it to Mike. Everybody seemed to think that it was feasible to where we contracted PEC. They came and did a structural analysis for us on the second floor just to give us an idea as to what walls are load bearing, what are not. So that way we could have that in place before we ever even started discussing spatial constraints and where walls could be and couldn't be, things of that nature. So then, once we had that in hand, we had meetings with all the departments as well as the chamber and EDC to go over this concept upstairs. We walked it with all the parties, kind of looked at it. Everybody seemed to agree that it seemed like a feasible design moving forward and to continue forward with it. You'll see Exhibit A is this concept that we've generated for upstairs, and it's color-coded to match the organizational chart that has some future staffing projections on it. Whether those are 3 years or 10 years is totally dependent on growth of the city, but we wanted to make sure that we were encompassing space for not just immediately, but down the road as well. We also tried to minimize the amount of reconfiguration upstairs to help limit with the cost of said project, as well as try to keep it consistent with what is on this floor. So you'll notice the bathrooms and the break room would be directly above the bathroom and copy room that's on this floor to try to keep plumbing fixtures all centralized, things of that nature. The layouts are very similar to the office spaces that are on this floor. You'll also notice on this concept I've integrated the structural analysis from PEC. All of the walls internally that have that diagonal check pattern are all load bearing. as indicated by PDC structural analysis. All the blue walls on there would be newly constructed walls or doors. And this would provide a large meeting room space directly above this council room. Currently, we're having a lot of meetings that, are getting to 15, 20 participants that are all being held in here. As we continue to have more and more of these space constraints, it becomes a burden on our current staff having to flip this room over, multiple times a day, that type of thing for different meetings. So we wanted to provide some meeting space, things of that nature. Once we started looking at upstairs, it brought up the concept of, what's gonna happen to the space downstairs? And we wanted to, put together kind of an idea for you guys to see what spaces would be left vacant. And that would be Exhibit B with the vacancies for the building and codes department as well as the planning department spaces. So you could see kind of the space that we would have on this floor to account for with departments that are down here and future growth. With the org chart with the future, with some of those future staffing projections, we knew that, this floor, we needed to maximize space going forward as well. So we've kind of put together a rough concept of what could happen or what could be done to the first floor to add a couple extra offices, do a minor rework to an area that is kind of an oddity on our day-to-day operations with, the Brad's current office often becomes a hallway to get to the conference room just because of the security updates and things of that nature going in and out. So we've kind of included this for your guys' reference as well to see kind of what could happen downstairs. Just, again, this is all very conceptual, just trying to get your guys' thoughts, opinions, and any concerns that we may have missed before we send out an RFQ for architectural services on the remodel project. So that way we can ensure that all of our internal, questions, comments, concerns, we've addressed and thought of before we put this RFQ out, so we can get the most accurate and efficient product from an architect going forward to maximize the effectiveness of this project.
Okay, any questions from council on the?
So the second floor will, at the top of the steps or where the elevator is, I'm not sure where the elevator is.
So it's
Oh, right, where the X is, that's right, thank you. Does that, is the security not gonna be the same then? Because the security,
So
how's the security gonna be up there?
So currently, the elevator will only go to this floor in the basement without a key override to take it to the second floor. In several discussions as to how to make the security update work for the second floor, it's very tough. It's the elevator has to function. It has to be there for ADA purposes. We've discussed, some upgrades, maintenance to the current elevator. With our security updates, every employee and council has the key fobs to get in the doors. We've had discussions of potentially upgrading the control panel in the elevator to where if we had somebody that was required an elevator to get to that floor, they would come to this. Somebody from the public would come to this floor as they currently do, talk to one of the people at the window, and they would call that employee that has a meeting with them from upstairs. You'd have to come down and get them and scan your key card to take it to the second floor. That's really the best solution we could possibly come up with without having a whole bunch of odd walls to provide security updates or making it feel as if you were in a glass case when you got off the elevator in the hallway upstairs, which also brings into a lot of concerns with egress and emergency access. If that elevator comes out into a glass wall, then we've got more doors going into the secure space, things of that nature. So that's kind of the preliminary plan, is to limit access with the elevator upstairs without an employee coming down and getting you and taking you up. Or in the event of, the chamber, for instance, if the chamber luncheon was upstairs and somebody was coming in, the chamber would have to have somebody to run the elevator to get anybody up there. Just because of the location of it doesn't lend itself well for a security setup similar to what's on this floor.
Right.
It also, the blue doors you'll notice on the right-hand side at the top of the stairs, those would be similar to the security doors here at the front where they would have a key fob on them. The landing of that staircase is outside of security on this floor. The stairway on the other side is inside of security. So anytime an employee would have to come down to the front office, you could use that staircase and not have to go out of security and back in, whereas that staircase would remain out of security, and that's purely out of necessity for this elevator to be able to hit this floor and still be a secure floor and provide egress down those stairs and out the water door in case of emergency.
The only other comment that I had, one, it looks like there's a lot of space going to chamber and EDC. And I also have just concerns about it being on a second floor, needs security to get in. It just seems very closed off and not open to the public. And I feel like a chamber should be open to the public and not need to be quite so secluded up there away where people just can't pop in and easily and see them and talk to people. That's just a personal opinion on that. I mean, I kind of feel that way with the chamber now. It's not always, those doors aren't always unlocked and open and ready, and you know, and I get it from a security standpoint, but I don't know, it just seems like that should be something a little bit more open and inviting, and to me, that being up on a second floor that high, and I realize this is kind of preliminary designs and maybe they'll get that much space, maybe they won't, but just the whole second floor concept just kind of throws me on that.
Yeah, so that's a concern that we've discussed as well, is, you know, the perception of them being on a second floor, not an open storefront. You know, it presents a challenge. There, from a spatial perspective here at City Hall, you know, we've got a couple other spaces that just are not feasible to give ADA access, such as where the mayor's office and the water office is down there. You know, that's a usable space, but it's not feasible to provide ADA access, things of that nature. The other thing with the space upstairs is, yeah, I mean, it's drawn with a lot of space. We also tried to draw this concept so that way, if, you know, they were to move in there and then in a few years move out to another space, it wouldn't require a rework to move city offices in there. It's really similar space-wise to the front office. That front blue area is almost identical to the front office. In the president and conference room is the exact same layout as Brandon and Mike's office is currently, for a frame of reference. So that's definitely a concern that we've heard from several different parties, and you know, if there's direction that they need to be somewhere else, we're definitely open to comment on it for sure.
Yeah, I'll follow up on that. I appreciate that you recognize that with the chamber as well, and I absolutely, completely agree with Lori's thoughts. It just seems odd to me that the chamber is buried in a city hall facility on the second floor, and I hadn't even put together that, in fact, they're behind security at this point. So, you know, I think there does need to be some discussion with the chamber about, you know, ideally they should be a storefront type organization that's downtown, you know, that's accommodating to the businesses. You know, they're an independent corporation, and it's just odd that they would be tucked in here. So if anything, I would be a little careful about how we design around that in the event that the city needs that space, and that they would be much better suited to be out where they're part of the business community, you know. And or the other thing is, I've been involved with a number of chambers and EDC organizations, and they all pay rent. You know, they're all standalone type organizations, and so whether they pay rent to the city or if they continue to occupy rent free, I think it ought to be recognized as part of the benefit or part of the contribution that we're making to the chamber's operating budget, such that they can plan their future programs and finances to be standalone, so that they can be. So I just feel like our chamber ought to be out in the community, and if we do this and accommodate them in this way, that my opinion is that this would be kind of a stepping stone. I do like, you know, that you're going to go out for an RFP on architecture services. I think it'd be interesting to look at how an architect's going to look at some of those spaces, maybe where the plans examiner and building official is. Does that have to be two offices And if what you've drawn up, which I think is great, I do like how some of the uses, such as city administrator uses, have been placed in different locations. But if they use this as a program in terms of the types of uses that need to be accommodated, the amounts of space that need to be accommodated for those uses, but in the areas where you're showing wall construction, it'd be interesting to see how an architect may look at some different kinds of configurations associated with it. So, the chamber proximity is my primary feedback here.
We're definitely interested to see how the architects would take my attempt at amateur architecture and change it to something that's actually gonna work.
Well, it is space programming. I mean, that is really the first step that you do in any office layout is figure out what do we need in terms of functions and sizes of
Right.
space. And that's exactly what you did. You're providing them a program from which to start.
Any comments, Rob?
So historically, the chamber was asked to come to City Hall, if I remember the history of that correct. So their presence here was set up in cooperation with the city. So I have no problem with them being here, having been involved in Overland Park Chamber and other chambers. I do like the fact that the offices aren't necessarily designed to accommodate them, but would accommodate future growth. To where if there be a need at a time for them to move, the offices are multifunctional. They're seeing growth like we're seeing growth, and that growth will potentially mean a move at some point in time, but it also means accommodating staff. Since they've been handling and working closely with Mike on proposals and things like that, it puts them in close proximity to who we're working with as a partner and who they're working with as a partner at this point.
Mayor, do you mind if I ask Cameron what, am just wondered, and I don't know if we'll ever get to that growth, but I think, Kevin, you might be familiar with, like Overland Park, I think they have a planner of the day, or they used to, where a planner sits out and just is there answering questions that people may walk in about, building, and I just wonder if that is part of this, or would that be, downstairs here, more, closer to the public coming in. It just occurred to me when you were talking about the planning function.
Yeah, so day-to-day operations, people coming in the front window has definitely been a concern of, I think, everybody here at City Hall. My department in particular seems to get one person every other day right now that walks in. Statistically, it's decreasing sharply. Pre-COVID, we had 3 to 4 people a day coming in every day, and the offering of these online permits, these online applications, things of that nature have really decreased our foot traffic coming in every day, and that's part of the concern with moving, the building department, the planning department upstairs, is how many trips a day are we gonna be making down those steps to talk to somebody at the front window. The girls up front have, the women up front, sorry, I get yelled at every time I use that word. The women up front, they have voiced their concerns with it, that, they're gonna have to be calling us a lot to come down. As far as office space on the first floor, we really haven't considered a space such as that, a planner of the day, a inspector of the day, whatever it may be, that's gotta spend their day on the first floor answering those questions. It's definitely something that would be feasible, I think, with the future staffing offices in mind, things of that nature.
I just figure the more we can show Brad to the public, that's a good thing. Thanks, appreciate it.
Yep.
Kevin?
I agree with the thoughts of having the chamber be uptown or somewhere more visible, because it did see a lot more traffic when we had them in the fire station. And it was more feasible for anybody to walk in there, whether they just moved to town or they were a business or wanted to join. So maybe that's the answer. I don't know what the future is of that building uptown is. They may want to, maybe just some discussions of them vacating that due to lack of personnel to go out to the other station, so, we may be having that back as well. That may be another place to put them back.
Okay. Danny? Thank you, Danny. I don't really, I'll wait and see. It's a good effort, Cameron. I'm excited to see what the next step might bring. See where the mayor lands. I don't see him on this plan, so.
I was gonna say the same
Three or four
thing,
times.
you know,
We
we're,
didn't want to put your name on it because we didn't want you to feel like we were telling you you had to take that particular office, but there's.
I see
plenty
it. It's
of
that
open
little
offices
meeting
for it.
privacy room right there, that
Yeah.
little square box. That's
Yeah.
me.
Or the utility
That
closet.
That
It's
would be,
that little-
that's the mayor's space. That's all you really need, just a spot to park for a
future
minute.
staffing there. You can have your choice next to Brandon or next to Whitney.
All right. Good work, Cameron.
Thank you. Is that all you needed tonight, Mike, on that?
Yeah, well, moving forward, we are gonna send out an RFQ for, and do the qualifications-based selection process, architect. So that's the next thing that you may see, is maybe a request to help us review those proposals. I don't think we need commitment tonight, but we'll package that up for you. Won't be too much of a time commitment. We've done that sort of thing before. And so the council will see a proposed, selected architect.
And it is something that's budgeted in the CIP for next year. There is funds allocated to this project in the CIP for next year that we anticipate will cover the design costs and things of that nature. So that's where the funding would come from after we issue this RFQ for architecture.
Right. All right, very good. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Item E, consider approval of final plat for Wildcat Plaza.
Brad, if you could remember to speak clearly and into the mic.
Yeah, I got coached already by Brandon this.
Good job. It's
Yeah,
working
that's a good
already.
start.
Nice start. Thank you.
What you have before you is the Wildcat Plaza final plat. They're actually splitting this tract in two places. Dustin Baker's going to own one and Matt Fair's going to own the other one for the veterinary business. So it's really a rather simple splitting of the property. Of course, there are easements that we're requesting, which brings it to the council for approval, except easements in right of way, but this is really sort of a punctuatory step in the process. As you know, you approved the PUD rezoning, which did show the buildings, finishes, access locations, all those items that need to be done with the planned unit development. And this is just simply the final plat that allows them to file this with the county and then to get a building permit for moving forward with construction. So with that, I'll stand for any
Okay.
questions you may have.
Any questions for Brad on the plat? Someone want to make a motion to accept the right-of-way and easements?
So moved.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion of the motion? Roll call, please.
Murdoch,
Yes.
Daniels,
Yes.
Hanamichael.
Yes.
Ritter,
Yes.
Lane.
Mr. Mayor?
Mayor, I was like, does Mayor vote on this one? Yeah, Mayor
Yes.
Walker.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, thank you. Item F, consider ordinance 2562, updating comprehensive plan with amended future land use map.
All right, thank you, Mayor and Council. As you know, we've had a housing committee that has been studying a variety of issues. And one of those was to look at our land use plan and make a recommendation to the planning commission for changes to the comprehensive plan. Really, just this is the one change that has been made. Now, the planning commission has asked us many times, or not a lot of times, but they've talked about the land use plan. Because it does show, that's the current one that's on the books right now, and it shows a lot of retail along Lexington Avenue. There's a lot of retail along Edgerton Avenue, and with the announcement of Panasonic and a lot of the development calls and even the rezonings that we've recently done, we've got over 100 acres of R3 that we've rezoned. And it seems that there's a strong trend to reduce the retail that's along Lexington Corridor and Edgerton Road and make those more specific to the interchange areas and then also increase the R3. It seems to me that's all the activity that's been going on with the Panasonic site. We've been getting more R3 multifamily activity, more R3 calls and meetings. And so the discussions we've had with our housing committee, which consists of Kevin Ritter, the mayor, and Rob Daniels, two planning commissioners, Justin Milburn and Roger Templin, myself, Mike, and Chet, that we felt that the recommendations that we moved forward with were primarily to remove a lot of that retail space. And also, this was done pre-COVID, where people still actually went to stores, and now we are not, as a society, doing that nearly as much. We did feel that there needed to be a bigger need for retail space. As you can see there, the retail areas are focused right on the interchange areas. And we converted a lot of those retail areas to R3. I think the other big changes that are on the plan are the extensions of the arterial roads, the numbered streets, numbering system through Johnson County, and those are shown on the map as well. We didn't have any kind of discussion prior during the current comprehensive plan about which arterials we wanted to potentially extend through the Sunflower site. And I do want to pause for a second. I did get a call from Jeff Stewart, the Parks and Rec director, today, and he did send an email to myself and Mike and several others. And they're basically summarizing, they just want to be involved when those arterials are moved through their site. They're going through their planning processes. The property is being dedicated to them from the Sunflower for master development, and they just want to be, it's just one of those things that they said, don't forget about us when you're putting these arterials, we want to make sure we work together. And you can see that they do have, we show a crossing it's at 111th Street or College Boulevard, right about there. And then Santa Fe, or 127th, and also 135th Street, and then 143rd also, but that's at the very southern end of the Sunflower development. Then, of course, the major change as far as the roadway system is the expressway that we've been talking about, connecting K10 at the Evening Star interchange and then potentially taking it down to down Edgerton Road and then tying into I-35. We've had some discussions, preliminary discussions with KDOT and Johnson County planning staff, and at least this is our contribution to putting a line on a map and making it shown that there is a strong intention to develop some sort of roadway corridor that extends from K10 down to I-35. And then finally, one of the things that's come up as we've been working on our solar ordinance, the area south of 127th, this area that we're kind of designating and we won't codify as having that being an area that could be developed for solar panels and generation of electricity in that area. So that's one of the overview of all the discussions we had. This is not something that we had just a meeting or two about. It came up many times, and also the Planning Commission seemed to be very supportive of having a revised document that they could lean on a little bit more. They felt it was a little more in alignment with the proposals that had been coming before them. So with that, I will stand for any questions that you might have.
Questions?
I would add a comment that in place of the retail that had been, and commercial that had been on Lexington, the multi-use on 103rd and on the curve of Lexington Avenue to 103rd is multi-use to where it could be business, commercial, first floor residential, second floor, kind of that multi-use function to where there's still some capability if the developer wanted to have some retail commercial.
Right. Mixed use to incorporate commercial along with residential uses on a single development. That's rather than just a straight commercial type use. I think the one other point I'd say is that we don't necessarily know, Brad mentioned expressway, we don't know what that road is. All we're really doing is putting a line on the paper to reserve a corridor through this development, and that process is going to take a lot of planning effort between a lot of other entities, and we want to make sure that Sunflower Astra, which they are supportive of it, is aware that, you know, corridor preservation is important to the success of the project, we believe, so. Any comments from any other council people? I think we're ready for a motion then. And that would be
I'll make a motion, we approve ordinance 2562, adopting the city's comprehensive plan as amended to include the new future land use map.
I will second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Carmichael,
Yes.
Daniels,
Yes.
Murdoch,
Yes.
Ritter,
Yes.
Lane.
Yes.
Can you vote on this, Patrick?
Yes.
Okay. Mayor Walker,
Yes.
motion carries.
All right, thank you, Brad. Item G, consider 2022 budget amendment.
Yes, council, as explained earlier, this is an amendment of the 2022 expenditures. I did provide in your staff report year-end fund balance projections that do show the health of all these funds moving forward. In its most abbreviated version, I think you have almost, I'm gonna skip down to these
Pictures.
yeah, where is it? This chart here shows a year-end general fund balance. You know, as we said, every time we have a budget discussion, we do budget annually, and that's the appropriations annually. But when we do our budget, is very much with a long-range projection in mind, and so we can see that regardless of the increased expenditures that we have this year, which I've mentioned, a lot of which are projects that have been planned for next year and will be funded next year, but we got an early start on them. You can see, regardless of that, revenues have also increased. We're not required to amend the budget to show revenues that exceed our budget, but they have. So you can see the general fund still on this downward slope, trending toward our fund balance commitment of 30% of operating expenses. That's our fiscal policy. So it's the same story on the water and on the sewer. Refuse was not included in the projections, but it's a similar story. So without belaboring that, I will stand for any questions. I'm asking for approval. There's a suggested motion there, approval of the amended fiscal year 2022 expenditures.
Any questions for Mike on the budget amendment?
Not necessarily on the amendment or the expenditures, but if sales tax collections continue to be
Yeah.
exceeding expectations?
Yeah,
or have they tempered some?
Not really. They're still about 9% above last year's total collections. We just did. We had an end of year or end of month for November just this week, and it looks like they're trending right about 9% above what we collected last year.
So still above our projections?
Oh yeah. Our projections are showing flat. I mean, when we budget very conservatively.
Yeah.
So far above that. And you know, that double-digit increase, we've seen that every year for the past 4 or 5. And I remember a couple years ago, we were worried that there was some reason that those might fall off, and we looked into it very closely.
So it hasn't been falling off like we were worried about?
Has not. Good question.
Okay. Any other questions? Ready for a motion, please.
I'll make a motion, we approve the budget amendment, increase the maximum 2022 expenditures for general, water, sewer, and refuse water funds as presented.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Lane,
Yes.
Carmichael,
Yes.
Daniels,
Yes.
Murdoch,
Yes.
Ritter,
Yes.
motion carries.
Item H, consider change order with McEnany Construction Company for work on the Ottawa Street project. Chet?
Thank you, Mayor and members of the council. I sent you an email about this last week as well. We went ahead and did the work in advance of this meeting just because of the time critical. It was on the critical path of getting the work done. So it's pretty typical at the onset of construction. You know, as soon as you start digging, you run into a few things that you don't know were there. We had a couple changes on the the bedding for the box culvert and some extra tree removal that we didn't anticipate and a couple of utility conflicts. But the significant item was when we got the culverts out under the road, it was really mucky and, you know, just real soupy under there. So we just had to excavate a little bit extra and then bring that back up with larger rocks. So we got a quote from the contractor, $75 a ton, which is in line with industry standards, with an estimate of 400 tons. I talked to the contractor yesterday, and he's completed that work at 217 tons. So the change order for $36,000 roughly would be $14,000 less than that. So with that, I stand for any questions you have.
Okay. Any questions for Chet?
So we're gonna you're seeking to get this change order value approved though, even though you know the actual charge is gonna come in less.
Yes, I would recommend that just in case, you know, we have
That
weather.
gives you a little bit of,
Yeah.
was there any contingency in the original contract?
Yeah, there was $100,000, so the construction services with CFS and this would fit within
Will
that.
fit in that
Within
contingency.
the 100,000, yep.
Any others?
If there's no other questions, I'll make a motion to approve change order number 1 with McEnany Construction in the amount of $35,704.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Hanamichael?
Yes.
Daniels?
Yes.
Murdock?
Yes.
Lane?
Yes.
Ritter?
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, thank you. Item I, consider agreement for law enforcement services with the Johnson County Sheriff.
Yes, council, this is an annual item that we act on. The service contract for 2023 is in your packet. It is largely the same in structure and format as previous years. The total amount of the agreement is $591,381. This is the exact amount that we budgeted for in 2023 budget, so no surprises there. We did amend the boundary to go all the way down to 143rd Street to correspond with our recent annexation. And we do have in our budget a $4,000 allowance for overtime. Similar report, we've been very satisfied with the performance of the Sheriff's Department. It remains, the community support for their services remains high. The cost of service also remains still with the increases relatively low, so we're recommending approving the 2024 contract. Of note, however, we have been notified as a result of some increased wage structures that have been approved by the BOCC. 2024 contract will be substantially more costly. So in the past, we've seen increases of, actually we've seen decreases before, but most recently kind of inflationary type, 6 to 8 to 10%. We've been told to expect a healthier increase in 15 to 20 to 30% range for next year. Don't have exact figures on that yet, but that's just an FYI. Doesn't impact 2023. But during our budget discussion for 2024, we'll have to address that.
Okay. Questions for Mike on the sheriff contract? Someone like to make a motion?
I'll make the motion. We recommend the council authorizes mayor to sign the agreement for law enforcement services for 2023 with the Johnson County Sheriff's Office.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Daniels?
Yes.
Murdock?
Yes.
Hanamichael?
Yes.
Ritter?
Yes.
Lane?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Executive session, we do not have any, correct?
Correct.
So we will go to advisory reports. City Administrator, Mike. what do you got?
Well, we very busy. The season, the activity, the pace of activity around City Hall. Staff has been very busy, but I should have something to report, but I do not. So I'll stand for any questions you might have of me.
Questions for City Administrator? Okay. City Attorney.
I just wanted to let the council know, yesterday we did close on the sale of the the property to Dustin Baker's group that will have.
Wildcat Plaza.
Yeah, Wildcat Plaza, so that has been completed. That's it for me.
All right, thank you. City planner, anything, Brad?
Just want to let you know, we kind of have the trifecta on our planning commission. We've got the site plan for Panasonic, preliminary plat for Astra Enterprise Park, and a final plat as well. So that will all be on the planning commission's agenda for next week. And actually, I say the site plan, it's the phase 1 site plan, which is essentially the horizontal flat work improvements.
Okay.
And that's next week, not the following week, so it's moved up.
Correct. It's the
It's on
20th.
the
20th.
The 20th.
Tuesday, the 20th. Okay. Chet?
Yeah, so Lochner was here about a month ago and talked about the bridge for 83rd Street. Since that time, we've talked to some folks out at Sunflower, Astra, and other consultants. Found out that we don't need to accommodate the double stack on that bridge, so we're actually gonna lower it. The estimate at the time was we'd probably reduce that price by about $400,000, so just wanna give you an update on that. We're still in negotiations on the water plant and water treatment plant services with the consultants. The interchange, ramp closures. Monday we had kind of a slip up we heard about a couple times. They pulled the ramp closed signs off while they were still closed. So, but they got that, they're doing pretty well and they got that straightened out Tuesday. Monday and Tuesday was at Lawrence on the KDOT selection for our road, 103rd and Lexington. They've got three good consultants on board, or design build teams. So we're having interviews next week, and they anticipate having somebody on board in February to get
Are
started.
they gonna announce then next week, or is that before Christmas, or?
I don't know when they're I don't know. I think I got the impression it'd be first of the year when we hear
All right.
about it.
Keep us waiting a little longer.
Yeah.
All right.
Just kind of a heads up, it's no longer called dual drive when we're talking about the Astra development, where it's gonna be Astra Parkway. So,
Astra Parkway.
Yeah.
That's been agreed to?
yeah. Oh yeah, they loved it.
That was your suggestion, huh?
I think Mike Osborne and I came
Oh.
up with it together.
Great.
And then, last thing, Ron Creason, his last day with the city's tomorrow, so, he's retiring and getting in his RV, and I think he'll be in Florida before the weekend's over, so. And I don't know if we have access to the sign, but we do have a sign if anybody wants to sign that for his going away, so.
It's in the, I think it's on that table in the,
Yeah, it's on the break room
break
table.
room.
Is that like a road closed sign or?
It's,
It's Ron's Garage.
Ron's Garage, or something, yeah. Right.
That's all.
All right, thank you. Brandon, anything from the Assistant City Administrator?
The only thing I have is you might notice some activity at various city properties. Next week, we're going to have our insurance appraisers coming into town to kind of inspect various buildings, including the water wells, the water treatment plant, the water distribution. So I'll be out with quite a few of them, but if you do catch anybody that's kind of wandering around the water plant, it's not anything nefarious. They're just kind of inspecting it so they can get a better idea of the value of our assets.
Okay.
They'll probably gonna be back in a few years because we're expanding, but it's our turn this year, so just FYI.
All right. Council comments. Danny, anything tonight?
Oh, I just have another question. Mike, is there a traffic study being done on 83rd and Cedar Creek there, that pole and that equipment wired into that antenna there?
83rd and Cedar Creek. You mean Kill Creek?
No, Cedar Creek.
It's on,
Okay, I'm not familiar.
Okay.
Is there some equipment out there that wasn't there before?
Yeah. It's on the right.
could be a traffic study for the church. Nothing we're doing.
Oh, okay.
Okay, no, I'm not familiar.
Oh,
yet.
okay, okay.
We can check into
I was
it.
asked and I
Yeah.
didn't know for
I
sure,
don't-
so. I thought I'd
That
bring
would
that up.
come to mind, that there's a church planned, on that piece of property.
Yes, it's on that side too.
Yeah, that perhaps they're doing traffic counts at that intersection.
We'll have to follow up with that. Yeah, I'm not sure.
Okay.
Danny,
Yes.
I got an email from a resident that was asking about that too, and they had emailed KDOT, and I think KDOT's been doing some kind of traffic study. I'm not sure if it's as detailed, if they're trying to get traffic counts, but there's some activity that they said they're looking at on 83rd Street.
Oh, okay. Okay, that's all I had, Mayor.
All right,
Thank you. Thank you.
Kevin?
I have nothing there.
Rob?
So it's nice having Lexington Avenue East open again. And I think we've mentioned this, although it was interesting to see the left turn and straight lanes combined back into a single left turn straight and 2 dedicated right turn lanes.
I talked to KDOT about that today, and forgot to mention that in my notes. We are, once we go to permanent full opening of the interchange, I talked to them, we are gonna go back to a through right rather than 2 dedicated rights.
We're gonna go back to,
We're gonna have a left, a through right, and a right.
okay, so the center will be a through and right.
Yeah.
And then, left and right.
Wait, did you say there's 4 lanes then? A left through, okay,
Yeah, left, a through right, and a right.
so that's 4 lanes.
Yeah.
4
Okay.
lanes?
We're getting rid of the 2 right. I know one of the rights.
One of the rights is gonna be a through right.
Right.
So it'll be a through right. So
Yeah.
3 lanes, a left,
Yes.
a right, and a through right in the middle.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay, that makes sense.
that makes more sense.
Yeah, we're gonna monitor that, and if stuff starts backing up into the ramp, there's just anticipate a lot of heavy right turn movements that are getting into Mastro, so. But yeah, we've got that change when they do a full opening, we're gonna get the
Okay.
straight and fixed. And also, we spoke about when they replace the signs, they are gonna get the spelling, so.
Good. We
Good,
will
yeah.
have space in DeSoto again.
We will.
Oh,
Is that it, Rob?
That's it.
Thank you. Lori?
I have nothing, thank you, Mayor.
All right, thank you. Kevin?
Yeah, attended the Johnson County Economic Research Institute board meeting on Tuesday of this week, representing DeSoto, and all strong economic indicators, all strong economic metrics in Johnson County. And Rob, kind of to your question about sales tax, countywide, pretty much every city is experiencing the same thing. Sales tax is running above where it had been. There's been some anomaly in the way the state was reporting it, and I don't know if it's the way we get paid, but there was a big spike in like June where they overstated, and then it dropped off in July, and August it evened back out. That was a state reporting kind of thing. I don't know if it actually affected your cash flow or not, but.
didn't see a big blip. We may have, but it wasn't worth.
Well, I know it showed up in the JCERT, Johnson County Education Research Triangle funding, where they got a lot of money, then they didn't get a lot of money, and then it kind of balanced back out. But anyway, pretty much across the board things are well. They saw a housing dip. Housing sales dipped a little bit in early fall, kind of as expected with some rising interest rates and that kind of thing. But in October, the average home sale price, so not the average home value, but take the total dollar value of houses sold divided by the number of houses sold, exceeded $500,000 for the first time.
Wow. Yeah.
$500,000 average home sale in Johnson County for the first time. Average. So anyway, that's all I got.
All right. We need this signed by everybody, right, before we leave tonight?
Yes, if you could, the budget
So
amendment.
I'll pass this on down, make sure we get that signed for the budget amendment. And I think that's the end of my big news. I'm cooking barbecue for staff tomorrow for the holiday luncheon.
Yes. We're glad the trip to Reno has been rescheduled.
I could have been headed back on a real late flight from Reno tonight, but I elected to come to the council meeting and cook barbecue later. So, no other report. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. We're adjourned.